I was 13 when the ground cracked open beneath my feet, metaphorically, of course, but the impact was real. That morning started like any other. Dad ruffled my hair, kissed my forehead, and headed off to the construction site where he worked as a foreman. He was wearing his lucky orange hard hat, the one with the faded sticker that said "Built to Last." "Be good, Callie," he said with a wink before closing the front door. That was the last time I ever saw him alive. My name is Callie Rhodes, and that day was the start of everything unraveling. I remember sitting in math class, trying to focus on decimals, when the principal's voice crackled through the intercom. "Callie, can you come to the office, please?" The weird part, her tone was soft, not the usual strict morning announcement voice. My stomach dropped. I knew something was wrong before I even left my seat. When I walked into the office, Mom was already there. Her makeup looked untouched, flawless even, not a single tear. She sat there perfectly straight, legs crossed, scrolling her phone until I walked in. "Your father's gone," she said, not even blinking. "Heart attack." It was instant. I froze. That couldn't be right. Dad was strong. Dad didn't just collapse. I started crying ugly, hiccup-filled sobs. But Mom? She just reached out and gave my back a few soft, robotic pats, like she was trying to soothe a cat. It felt like she was consoling someone else's child. That night, lying awake in bed, I heard her talking to someone on the phone, probably her friend Denise. Our walls were paper thin, so every word slid through. "Honestly, Denise, this might be a blessing in disguise," she said. My breath caught. "Better than a divorce. This way, I keep everything. No splitting assets, no lawyers, just sympathy and a fresh start." Then she laughed. I already picked out a dress for the funeral. Black, fitted, tasteful. I'll be the perfect grieving widow. I curled into a ball, covering my mouth with both hands to keep from screaming. My chest burned with grief and disbelief. The only person who seemed to understand was Aunt Maggie, Dad's older sister. At the funeral, while others offered their condolences to my devastated mother, Maggie stood at the back of the chapel, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin, knowing line. She didn't buy the act. She never had. 4 months after the funeral, the next bombshell dropped. I came home from school to find our dining table decked out with candles and real cloth napkins. Mom had made a roast like a full-on-Sunday dinner on a Tuesday, for a man I had never met. His name was Martin Delacroix, a tech consultant with 2 kids, Sebastian, 13, and Ivy, 11. Polished, private school types. The kind who wore dress shoes to family dinners and called adults ma'am and sir. That night, Mom turned to me with her fakest voice. "Callie, sweetheart, Martin and I have news." I already knew. It was written all over her face. "We're getting married," she chirped, squeezing Martin's hand like a lovesick teenager. "Isn't that wonderful?" "Wow," I said, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Congratulations." Martin smiled at me too, but his eyes scanned the room like he was judging the curtain choices. His kids sat stiffly, avoiding eye contact like I had some kind of social disease. That night I called Aunt Maggie. I tried to stay strong, but my voice cracked after the first sentence. She didn't offer false hope. Instead, she said something I never forgot. "Sweetheart, sometimes the people you choose are more your family than the ones you're born into." A week after the honeymoon, the Delacroix moved in. Ivy claimed my old playroom as her creative corner, and Mom backed her up like it was perfectly reasonable. "Don't be selfish, Callie," she said with a sigh. "They need to feel at home here." Sebastian got the second largest bedroom, even though mine was barely big enough to fit my desk and bed. My mom changed overnight. She became Ivy and Sebastian's personal chauffeur, tutor, and biggest cheerleader. Meanwhile, the first started eating dinner alone, reheating leftovers and scraping burnt cheese off old baking trays. "Sebastian needs new soccer cleats," she'd tell Martin, who always nodded and handed her a card. "And Ivy's going to that art camp in the summer." When I asked for a new backpack for school, she frowned like I was asking for a Gucci purse. So I stopped asking. They started taking weekend trips, small getaways to nearby lakes or charming towns. I was never invited. "You'll be bored," she said one Friday morning, not even looking up from the picnic basket she was packing. "Besides, someone needs to feed Lulu." Lulu was our cat. I guess I was now also the full-time pet sitter. Most weekends, I stayed with Aunt Maggie. Her little yellow cottage always smelled like cinnamon, and felt more like home than my own house. She never made me feel like an afterthought. "This isn't right," she'd say while we baked cookies or folded laundry together. "A mother shouldn't have favorites." I shrugged, pretending it didn't sting. "At least I've got you." Years passed, and the pattern never changed. I faded into the background while Mom played Stepford wife to Martin and his kids. When I turned 17, I dared to dream out loud. One night at dinner, I cleared my throat and said, "I've been researching business schools. I'd like to apply soon." The fork clattered out of my mother's hand like I'd slapped her. "Callie," she said with a forced smile, "we can't afford college right now. We have to focus on Ivy and Sebastian's future." "That's just reality." Martin kept chewing. Ivy looked smug. Sebastian smirked like he'd just won something. That night, I waited until everyone went to bed and cornered Mom in the kitchen. "What about Dad's life insurance?" I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. "He saved for college. For me." Her face changed instantly. Cold, flat. "That money's gone," she snapped. "Spent on raising you. You think food, clothes, and a roof came free?" That's when I knew. She'd spent every cent on them, not me. I packed a bag and walked the mile to Aunt Maggie's house the next morning. My eyes were red and raw by the time I knocked on her door. We sat at her kitchen table, the smell of coffee curling around us like a hug. I told her everything. She didn't interrupt, just listened. Then she got up and went to her study. I heard her rustling through drawers before she returned with a thick envelope. "Your dad came to see me 3 weeks before he died," she said softly. "He gave me this. Said he had a feeling something might happen. Asked me to hold it for you, for when you were ready." Inside the envelope was a bank statement, a savings account, in my name, with more money than I'd ever seen. "I'm the trustee," she said. "It's all yours, Callie. Your dad made sure of it." I broke down crying, but this time it was from relief, from love, from knowing that, even in death, Dad had protected me. Aunt Maggie reached across the table and held my hand. "We won't tell your mom. Not yet. You have time. Just promise me one thing, don't let them dim your light. Ever." And in that moment, I made a promise to myself, too. They took everything they could from me, but I would get it all back. After that night with Aunt Maggie and the envelope that changed everything, something in me clicked. I had spent years being the invisible girl in my own home, tiptoeing around people who barely saw me. But now, I had a plan. From that day forward, I stopped arguing. I didn't try to win my mom's attention or fight for scraps of love. I just observed, quietly, patiently, like a student preparing for a final exam. I took harder classes, stayed after school to help teachers, and signed up for every free workshop I could. When Mom said no to college, I didn't argue again. I just started preparing in silence, like Dad had prepared for me. Aunt Maggie opened a separate email account for me, helped me set up a new laptop with a password only I knew. We applied for college together, sitting side by side on her worn-out couch with hot cocoa and late-night TV humming in the background. I researched scholarships, filled out essays, and triple-checked every application. Meanwhile, back at the house, the favoritism only got worse. Ivy had a solo art exhibit at her private school, and Mom acted like her daughter had been accepted into the Louvre. Sebastian made varsity soccer, and suddenly he was some kind of hometown hero. Mom would throw little parties for their milestones, cheese boards, themed cupcakes, social media posts with captions like "so proud of my bonus babies." I wasn't mentioned, not once. At school, I kept my head down, but people noticed. Teachers, classmates, some whispered about the stepkids who acted like royalty while I faded into the background. Others didn't bother with whispers. One day in the hallway, Sebastian actually shoved past me and muttered, "You should just move out already. You're the dead weight." I said nothing, but that sentence, it stayed with me, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I already knew. I didn't belong there anymore, and I wasn't going to stay much longer. My acceptance letter from Ridgeview University arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at Aunt Maggie's, helping her sort garden tools when she brought out a bundle of envelopes. One of them had the school's name on it. I stared at it for a second, heart pounding. When I opened it, I didn't even read the whole thing. The words, "We are pleased to inform you," were enough. I screamed. Maggie dropped a trowel. We danced right there in the backyard, muddy shoes and all. The scholarship covered tuition. Dad's savings, now almost doubled with interest, would take care of everything else. I didn't tell Mom, not yet. Instead, I waited until after graduation. I wore a plain black dress under my gown. No decorations, no family pins, nothing flashy. Ivy wore gold heels and posted 6 selfies from the ceremony, with captions like "so proud of my stepbrother Sebastian." No one even asked if I was going to college. It was like I'd just expire after high school. 3 days later, I packed my things while they were out at a weekend soccer tournament. Just 3 boxes, 2 duffel bags. That's all I had to my name. Maggie pulled up in her old Toyota, honked once, and helped me load everything in the trunk. I left a note on my bed. Not dramatic. Just clear. "Thanks for everything. I'm moving out. Please don't contact me. I'll be okay." I don't know if they even read it, but I didn't wait around to find out. As we pulled away, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. Ridgeview wasn't some Ivy League palace. It was a quiet state school with brick buildings and squirrels that acted like they paid tuition too. But to me, it was heaven. No one knew me as that girl whose dad died or Martin's stepdaughter. I was just Callie. My roommate, Tasha, was this loud, hilarious nursing major who used pink sticky notes for everything and had a habit of eating cereal at 2 a.m. We clicked immediately. I told her bits and pieces of my past, never too much. But one night after a group project fell apart and we were venting over ramen noodles, I let more slip than usual. She didn't judge, just raised her eyebrow and said, "Girl, your mom's a villain straight out of a soap opera. You should be proud you made it out." And I was. College wasn't easy. I worked at the campus cafe between classes, took on extra credits, joined the business club, and even landed a part-time internship by sophomore year. I had a single goal: build a life so solid no one could tear it down again. Meanwhile, Mom's Instagram stayed the same. Perfect pictures, fake captions, Ivy's paintings, Sebastian's trophies, beach photos, matching outfits. I wasn't in a single one. Sometimes I stared at those posts, wondering if she ever missed me. Then I'd shake it off and get back to work. By my senior year, I had a job lined up before I even graduated. The marketing firm I interned for wanted me full-time. The pay wasn't huge, but it was more than enough. I signed a lease on a tiny 1-bedroom apartment downtown. Hardwood floors, chipped white cabinets, and a view of a brick wall, but it was mine. Every inch of it was mine. I moved in with just a futon, a bookshelf, and a secondhand coffee maker. Aunt Maggie helped me hang a painting of a lighthouse over the couch. "You've got your own light now," she said, squeezing my shoulder. 1 week into the new job, my manager called me into her office. I thought I was in trouble. Instead, she smiled and said, "You've got sharp instincts. I want to mentor you personally." That's when things started moving faster. I worked late, learned everything I could, took projects no one else wanted. Within 2 years, I was promoted, twice. By 24, I had my own team, a decent salary, and a better apartment, this one, with a balcony that overlooked the river. Still small, but perfect. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable, safe, mine. Then, one morning, while drinking coffee in that apartment, an email pinged on my phone. The name in the subject line made my stomach drop. Subject: "It's Mom. Read this." I stared at my phone. The subject line just sat there like a ghost from the past. "It's Mom. Read this." No hi. No how are you. Not even my name. Just 5 cold words. I waited a few seconds, hoping maybe the message would disappear like a glitch, but no. It stayed. After everything, this was how she reached out? I clicked it open. "Hi, Callie. I'm turning 55 next month. We're having a family dinner at the Whitestone Super Exclusive. You've probably never heard of it. 7:30, sharp. I expect you to be there. Dress nice. Don't embarrass us." That was it. No mention of my birthday last year. No apology. Just a demand, dipped in condescension. The kind of message that made it clear she hadn't changed. She wasn't reaching out to reconnect. She just wanted a showpiece at her table. I almost deleted it. Almost. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something deeper. Closure? Revenge? I didn't know yet. All I knew was I didn't feel sad or hurt. I just felt ready. That night, I told Aunt Maggie everything. We sat in her living room, tea mugs in hand, a candle burning on the coffee table. The rain tapped against the windows like quiet drums. "What are you going to do?" she asked gently. I sipped my tea and pulled out my phone. "I'm going to RSVP." Maggie blinked. "You're going?" I nodded. "Yep, and I'm not going empty-handed." She raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" I turned the phone toward her. The screen showed a confirmed booking a 3-week luxury trip to South Africa. 5-star lodges, safari tours, private chef. First-class flights, $34,000. Paid in full. For her? Maggie asked, shocked. I smirked. No, not really. The weeks leading up to Mom's dinner were strange. I went to work, ran team meetings, nailed presentations, and all the while, the invitation sat in my inbox like a ticking clock. It didn't bother me. If anything, I felt oddly calm. Tasha texted me, "You're seriously going to see her again?" I replied with a photo of my dress. It was sleek, understated. Designer, yes, but not flashy. The kind of quiet elegance that whispers instead of screams. Exactly the opposite of the people I'd be sitting across from. The day of the dinner, I took a rideshare. Left my car at home on purpose. I knew how they operated, judging by appearances, drawing their own stories from the clothes you wore or the car you drove. I didn't want to give them a single clue about my life. Not yet. The Whitestone was a place that thought it was fancier than it was. White tablecloths, overpriced seafood, chandeliers that tried too hard. I'd been to actual business dinners in New York and DC. This place? It was a costume party. A hostess led me to the private room in the back. The second I stepped in, I felt like I'd walked into a theater performance. Everyone turned to look. There she was, my mother, sitting at the head of the table, dripping in sequins and smugness. Her hair perfectly curled. Martin beside her, still pretending to be someone he never was. Ivy and Sebastian on either side, like bookends. I stepped forward, calm and quiet. "Oh," Mom said, tilting her head. "You actually came." She scanned me from head to toe. "HM, you could have worn something a bit more festive." I smiled politely and took a seat at the far end of the table. The dinner played out like a bad sitcom rerun. Old relatives I barely remembered giving fake hugs. Ivy showing off photos from her latest art show, acrylic blobs that somehow sold for hundreds. Sebastian talking about networking and brand building, though I'm pretty sure his biggest client was his girlfriend's Etsy store. Gifts came out. Candles, jewelry, a blender. Ivy gave her a custom-painted portrait. My mother cried, like she'd received a Nobel Prize. Then it was my turn. I stood slowly and handed her a small box. Nothing flashy. Just clean white paper and a gold ribbon. She didn't even try to hide her disdain. "What's this? Did you pick it up on the way over?" She unwrapped it like it offended her fingers, then pulled out a piece of paper thick, cream-colored, folded once. "What is this?" she snapped. I spoke clearly, calm, every word sharp as glass. "It's a confirmation. 3 weeks at the Royal Savannah Lodge in South Africa. First-class travel. Full service. It's already paid." The room went silent. Ivy blinked. Sebastian froze mid-sip. My mom looked down at the paper again, then back at me. "You didn't buy this," she said, voice shaking. "You can't afford this. What is this? A scam?" I laughed softly. "Nope, just a gift. You always said I'd never amount to anything. Thought I'd prove you wrong." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "I'm head of strategy at a global firm now. I own my condo. I drive a car you've never heard of. Because you were too busy playing house with someone else's kids." Her face turned a pale shade of pink. Martin cleared his throat. "Let's not turn this into, I'm not turning anything into anything," I interrupted, just giving her a reminder of what she gave up. I stepped away from the table, quietly, gracefully. I heard Ivy whisper, "Is she serious?" as I left. I didn't look back. Back in Maggie's kitchen, I recapped everything. We laughed, hard. "She really tried to say it was a scam?" Maggie asked, wiping tears from her eyes. "Dead serious." I leaned back in my chair, finally feeling the weight slip off my chest. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Callie. That was unnecessary, but I'd still like to take the trip. It might be a good time for us to reconnect. We're still family. I stared at the message. A week ago, I might have felt conflicted. But now, I just felt tired. A second message followed. "Also, Ivy's been looking at internships. Maybe you could help her out? She's very talented. And Sebastian's thinking of moving into business. He'd love to chat. Also, the house needs new plumbing. Maybe you could contribute?" It kept going. One guilt trip after another. Not one genuine apology. Just requests. Favors. Grabs for the life she thought she still had access to. I blocked the number. Maggie poured more tea. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. For the first time in a long time, I thought blocking her number would be the end of it. That once I walked out of that overpriced restaurant with my head held high and left the past behind, she'd stay there. But my mother didn't know how to lose quietly. The next morning, Maggie called while I was getting dressed for work. She showed up, she said, not even saying hello. I paused, halfway through buttoning my blouse. What do you mean showed up? At my door. 10 minutes ago. Uninvited. Unhinged. My stomach tightened. Maggie sighed. She banged on the door like I owed her money. Said she needed to know where you lived. That it was her right as your mother. I told her she gave up that right a long time ago. Of course she didn't take that well. Maggie said the neighbors were probably still talking about the scene. Mom screamed about betrayal, said we were turning you into a cold-hearted girl, and swore she'd fix things whatever that meant. She finally left when I told her I'd call the police. Maggie added, it was ridiculous, embarrassing, but not shocking. That afternoon, I told security at my office to flag her name. I had the front desk update visitor restrictions. I changed my email filters. I even updated my emergency contact information just in case. But Mom wasn't done. A few days later, I started getting messages from random numbers. The same tone, the same phrases. It's your mother, Callie. The first need to talk to you. Please unblock me. This is important. Family forgives, doesn't it? She didn't stop there. She emailed from every address she could think of. Even tried my old college account. When I didn't respond, the messages shifted from guilt to flattery to full-blown manipulation. You're doing so well. We're proud of you. Maybe you could help Sebastian get started in marketing. He's passionate. Ivy wants to apply to your company's internship program. It would really help her resume. You have a nice home, right? Maybe the family could visit sometime. We haven't had a vacation in years. Reading those messages didn't hurt. They didn't even sting. They felt empty. Like someone knocking on a locked door they broke years ago and forgot how. At first, I ignored everything. But part of me couldn't stop thinking about it. About how fast she switched from dismissing me to needing me. From tossing me aside to pulling at my sleeve. Like she had a remote and thought she could fast forward to the part where I suddenly belonged again. She never asked about my life, my work, my friends, my apartment. Not once. Her curiosity only extended to the parts she could benefit from. And that said everything. A week later, I got an email from a shared contact. My old high school English teacher, Miss Levine. Subject, heard you're doing big things. Inside was a kind note, congrats, well wishes, and then one small line that made my heart skip. Funny, your mom stopped by school last week and told me all about your promotion. She said you might speak at career day. I'd love to schedule it if that's true. I stared at the screen. She what? I hadn't spoken to Miss Levine since graduation. I hadn't been back to that school in years. Yet somehow my mom had waltzed in, used my name, and started spreading stories. And that's when it clicked. She wasn't reaching out just for favors. She was trying to borrow my success, wear it like a coat that still fit, flash it around like her parenting paid off. Suddenly, silence didn't feel strong enough. So I responded, not to her, but to Miss Levine. Thanks for the kind words. Just to clarify, I wasn't aware my mother visited. I won't be attending career day this year, but I'd love to help in the future. Hope you're well. I kept it professional, calm, clear. I knew she'd hear about it. And she did. Because later that night, Maggie's phone lit up again. She's mad now, Maggie said, her voice dry with sarcasm. Claims you're ruining her reputation. Says she's the one who made you who you are. I actually laughed. Out loud. She's spinning, I said, because for once, she can't control the story. But what she did next, that surprised even me. She showed up at my office. Security caught her at the front desk. She claimed to be delivering flowers, only she had no flowers. Then she said she had an appointment, which wasn't true either. Finally, she dropped the act and just asked, loudly, for me. I was in a meeting when the front desk called. I didn't go down. They escorted her out instead. Later, I checked the building cameras. There she was, pacing near the elevator, wearing a blazer and oversized sunglasses like some kind of soap opera villain. She even yelled at the receptionist on her way out. And somehow, that was what made me stop feeling angry. Because watching her on that screen flailing like a desperate stranger made me realize something. She hadn't changed. But I had. I wasn't the girl on the stairs anymore, covering my mouth while she laughed about being a widow. I wasn't the teenager begging for school supplies while she bought Ivy another art kit. I wasn't the daughter sitting at the dinner table, hoping for eye contact that never came. I was the adult who didn't need her, and that was what scared her most. The next week, Maggie came over to help plant herbs on my balcony. We sipped lemonade and laughed about the past, the way we always do. "You've got everything she wanted," Maggie said after a quiet moment. I looked around. My apartment, my job, my peace. "Yeah," I said, "but I earned it." She nodded. "That's what she can't handle." She tried to raise someone who'd always depend on her. Instead, she ended up with someone who didn't need her at all. The sun dipped low on the horizon. We watched it in silence. Then I pulled out the vacation confirmation, the one I'd originally booked in her name. I had changed the reservation 2 weeks ago. "Guess where you're going?" I said with a grin. Maggie blinked. "What?" "South Africa. 3 weeks. All paid. Your name's on it now. You leave in September." She stared at the paper like it might bite her. "Callie, I can't." "You can. And you will," I said. "You've been more of a mother to me than she ever was. And if anyone deserves a luxury trip to see elephants and drink wine under the stars, it's you." She teared up, tried to protest again, but I just held her hand. "You don't owe me anything," I whispered, "but I owe you everything." We hugged for a long time, right there on my tiny balcony, surrounded by lavender plants and city noise. And in that moment, I felt something settle, like the puzzle of my past had finally found its last piece. I was free, and I was home. You'd think after being turned away at my office, my mom would finally get the message. She didn't. A few days later, Maggie texted. She sent a letter. I didn't answer right away. I was at work, and I didn't want to spend even 5 seconds thinking about her. But curiosity is a tricky thing. After dinner, I drove to Maggie's place, and there it was, sitting on the kitchen table. Cream envelope, gold-trimmed edges, like it was trying to be elegant, when really, it just screamed effort. I stared at it for a minute, then I opened it. Her handwriting was the same, over-practiced, neat but cold. She always wrote, like she was being graded. "Callie, I've been thinking a lot since the dinner. Maybe things haven't been perfect between us, but I've always done what I thought was best. Life is complicated, and I know I made choices you didn't agree with, but I'm still your mother. That means something. It should mean something. We don't have to stay strangers. I'd like to fix that." She signed it with love. Love. The word felt hollow coming from her, like it didn't belong in her mouth or on her page, like she was borrowing it from someone else. Maggie raised an eyebrow. "She's circling the drain now." "Yeah," I said, folding the letter slowly. "But I'm not pulling her out." I didn't respond. And that silence, it seemed to wake something up in her. Because the next week, she started calling Maggie again, every day, sometimes twice. Once, she even left a voicemail. "You're poisoning her. She's forgotten who I am because of you. I hope you're proud." We laughed, because it was ridiculous, because blaming Maggie was easier than facing the truth. But Mom wasn't just unraveling, she was escalating. The last straw came on a Thursday afternoon. I was at my desk reviewing campaign proposals when HR called me. "Hey, Callie," the coordinator said gently. "We got a strange call earlier, someone claiming to be your mother. She said you were mentally unwell and needed a break from work. Tried to schedule a leave on your behalf." I froze. "She said she was concerned for your health," the woman continued. "We didn't act on anything, obviously, but we thought you should know." I couldn't even speak for a moment. My hands clenched the edge of the desk. "She's trying to ruin me," I finally said, voice tight. Again. After the call, I filed an official complaint and added her to a no-contact list. I met with legal. Our security team flagged her name. The company lawyer assured me they'd take further steps if she pushed again, but I knew she wouldn't stop. Not until she hit a wall she couldn't climb. So I built one. That weekend, I sat down and wrote my own letter. Just 1 page. No fluff, no performance. You don't get to rewrite our story now. I lived it. I remember everything: the nights you made me feel like a burden, the years you poured yourself into people who weren't your child, the silence when I needed you most. You chose them. You discarded me. Now you want access to the life I built without you? That's not how this works. I don't owe you anything. Not conversation, not connection, not forgiveness. This is your final notice. Stop contacting me, or I will pursue legal action. I am not a character in your fantasy of redemption. I am not your daughter in any way that matters. I printed 2 copies, one for her, One for the records. Maggie mailed it for me. If she knocks again, she said, I'm answering with a camera. I smiled, grateful, but something still gnawed at me. It wasn't guilt. It was grief. Not for her, but for the idea of her. For the mom I once hoped she could be. For the version of us that never existed. It's a strange kind of pain mourning someone who's still alive. Weeks passed. The calls stopped. The emails vanished. No more voicemails, letters, fake emergencies. It was like the storm finally gave up and moved on. In the quiet that followed, I finally breathed easy again. Maggie went on her trip in September, just as planned. She sent me photos of wild giraffes, warm sunsets, and dinner under stars. Her face looked lighter, younger almost. This is the first time in years I haven't felt like I had to carry anyone, she told me on a video call. I didn't know freedom could feel like this. I did, I said with a smile. That's why I gave it to you. Meanwhile, work picked up. I led 2 major projects, one of which landed us a national client. My boss Daniel pulled me aside during our quarterly review. You've outgrown your position, he said. I blinked. Is that a compliment or a warning? He laughed. A compliment. You're ready for more. Let's talk promotion. By November, I was sitting in a new office with floor-to-ceiling windows and my name on the door. Senior Director of Strategy. Same company, bigger seat at the table. And still no one at home knew. Not Ivy, not Sebastian, not her. It wasn't out of spite anymore. It was something cleaner than that. It was peace. One chilly Sunday, I walked through the park, scarf tight around my neck, coffee warming my hands. The leaves were mostly gone, the trees bare and honest. I liked them that way, nothing to hide, nothing left to prove. I passed a little girl with curly hair and paint-splattered jeans, holding her mom's hand as they laughed about something I couldn't hear. I stopped, just for a second, and for the first time, I felt something soft in my chest. Not bitterness, not pain, just understanding. I would never have that kind of mom, but I could be that kind of woman. One who listens, one who lifts, one who never forgets what it feels like to be invisible. That night, back in my apartment, I stood by the window watching the lights across the city flicker on like stars trying to outshine each other. I looked around at the space I built, the books I chose, the mug on the table that still had Maggie's lipstick print from our last visit. Everything around me was mine, not just bought, but earned, protected, loved. My phone buzzed. Tasha. Want to come over and watch bad reality TV? I smiled and texted back. On my way. Some people spend their whole lives chasing love that only takes from them. I spent years trying to shrink myself into someone easy to ignore, just to survive. But not anymore. I didn't just walk away from my past, I built something better, stronger, softer too. And maybe the best revenge isn't anger. Maybe it's a quiet life, a full one, a real one. Life has a way of moving on, even when you're not sure you're ready. The days get quieter, the phone buzzes less. The sharp edges of old memories start to dull, like beach glass worn smooth by time and tide. Months passed. No more letters, no calls, no fake emergencies. It was like she'd finally disappeared into the background noise of my past, still technically there, but irrelevant. Like an old commercial you remember the jingle from, but never the product. And that was fine with me. Work kept me busy. My team grew. Our projects got bigger. And Daniel, my boss, started talking about grooming me for VP in the next couple years. It was surreal, in the best way. I had gone from sharing a futon with Tasha and eating dollar ramen to leading national campaigns and flying out for meetings in Chicago, Austin, and San Diego. But what I loved most? Coming home to my apartment, to the peace I built. One Sunday morning, I was at the farmer's market with Maggie, carrying 2 canvas bags full of fresh basil, sourdough, and overpriced blueberries. She looked over at me, sunglasses perched on her head. So, she said casually, "You heard?" "Heard what?" She gave me a look. "Your mother. She's moving." I blinked. "Where?" "Not far. Just downsizing." Word is, Martin's business isn't doing great, and the house is, well, a little too much for their lifestyle now. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. I hadn't thought about that house in a while. The white siding, the narrow stairs, the room I used to sit in alone while they packed for their weekend trips. The place where I learned how to be invisible. Ivy's trying to get into a grad program, Maggie added. Art therapy or something. She's been tagging your company in posts again. Subtle, but not really. I chuckled. She's not getting in, I figured. We kept walking. The market buzzed around us, vendors calling out prices, toddlers demanding ice cream, couples laughing over chai. I don't feel anything, I said after a while. Should I? Maggie didn't answer right away. Then she said, You already felt it, years ago. This is just the silence after the storm. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony, the city humming below me. I scrolled through my phone without really looking, just letting my mind drift. Then I saw it. A message request. The name made my stomach dip, but not in the old way. No fear, just caution. Like hearing thunder after the rain already passed. It was her. Hi, Callie. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say something anyway. I messed up. I see that now. I thought I was doing what made sense at the time, but I was wrong about so much. You didn't deserve what I did. And I'm sorry. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know. That was it. No requests, no flattery, no guilt, just words, and I didn't know what to do with them. For years, I imagined an apology that would make everything better. Something that would explain it all, undo the hurt, bring back what was lost. But when it came, it didn't feel like healing. It felt like a door creaking shut. Because the truth was, I didn't need her to say sorry. I had already rebuilt without it. I stared at the message for a while, thought about replying, just a thank you, just a take care, just something. But I didn't. Because sometimes silence says what words can't. A month later, I was invited to speak at a leadership conference. Big names, national audience, panels, streamed online. I stood on stage under bright lights, looking out at hundreds of people, and told the story of how I found my voice not through privilege, but through persistence. I didn't mention her by name, but I talked about the girl who had to leave her house to find her home. I talked about the silence that made her strong, and the woman she became because of it. Afterward, a young woman came up to me. Maybe 22, shaky voice, eyes wet. I left home last year, she said. It was hard. I didn't think I could do it. But hearing you, it makes me feel like maybe I'll be okay. You will be, I told her. You already are. She hugged me, and I felt it in my bones, the thing I'd been chasing for years. Not revenge, not applause, closure. A few weeks later, I stood on Maggie's porch, handing her a small box. She looked confused. What's this? I shrugged. Open it. Inside was a silver necklace with a tiny lighthouse charm. I saw it in a boutique window in Charleston, the first said. It reminded me of you. Maggie blinked hard, trying to hide tears. You didn't have to, I know, I said, but I wanted to. You were my lighthouse, Maggie, when everything else went dark. She hugged me tighter than she ever had before. And in that embrace, I realized something I hadn't put into words until then. I wasn't just healed. I was whole. That spring, I started volunteering with a nonprofit that helped teens aging out of the foster system transition into housing, jobs, and education. Kids who, like me, knew what it meant to be overlooked, to feel disposable. One of the girls, Amira, reminded me of myself at 17. Sharp eyes, quiet strength, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. We worked together for months. Eventually, she got her GED, landed a paid internship, and moved into her own studio apartment. At the ribbon cutting for her building, she found me in the crowd. You know what you are? She asked. I raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. She smiled. Proof. Proof that the cycle ends. That scars aren't the end of the story. That we don't have to become what hurt us. The last time I thought about my mother with any real weight was a random Tuesday. I was making pasta, music playing low. My apartment smelled like garlic and rosemary. I remembered a line she used to say when I was little, back when things still felt like they might turn out okay. Some people are like anchors, and some people are like sails. Back then, I thought it was just something she read off a mug, but standing there in my own kitchen, sauce simmering, windows open to the wind, I finally understood. She was the anchor, but I was the sail, and I had learned how to move forward without her. Story 2. My name is Betty, and I was a little too fond of eating upscale dinners at the beginning of last year. As a result, I put on 6 kilograms. I'm currently 44 and on a diet in preparation for the holidays. In order to enjoy Christmas sweets without fretting later, my objective is to just lose weight now. It seems like a good concept, doesn't it? It's usually difficult with all the delectable food from Christmas until New Year's. I might even buy myself some chocolate for Valentine's Day. My mouth waters at the very thought. It appears that I may wind up putting on a few more pounds, like I do every year. I want to tell you a tale about winter when I was 24 years old. I was about to be engaged to my boyfriend Adam after years of dating. He needed to get to know my folks. An important step that indicated the start of wedding negotiations. When my parents talked about our future, it was simpler since they loved Adam. However, when my elder sister Linda, who is 4 years older than I am, immediately returned home from work, something unexpected occurred. She seemed oddly interested in Adam, I noted. Sisters are able to communicate without using words, and I quickly realized that Linda had fallen in love with him. I initially believed it to be a fleeting, stupid crush. However, she flushed a lot and held his hand for too long when they first met. Despite the fact that it was inappropriate for her to behave, I couldn't help but notice her gorgeous appearance. In the direction of my fiancé, I convinced myself that she wouldn't really do anything about it and that it was just a harmless crush. But once Adam went, things deteriorated. Linda approached me immediately after showering, with just a towel wrapped around her, and told me to end our engagement. I deserved someone better, she added, accusing Adam of being a womanizer. But she had no evidence when I asked for it. Her woman's intuition was all she had. The irony was that Linda had never even been in a romantic relationship. Taking my sister's sentiments seriously was difficult for me. I had great faith in Adam because I had known him for so long. I ignored the commotion my sister was causing and concentrated on our relationship, since I knew he was a nice man. I dismissed her cautions with a flippant "yeah, I'll be careful," not really thinking about them. Adam began coming to our house more frequently after that chat. I found it rather endearing that he wished to establish a solid bond with my family. I am hoping that this would further improve the fact that my folks already loved him. My sister's actions caused things to become awkward, even though I had envisioned a pleasant and quiet future with him. Adam claims that she behaved far too amiably towards him when I wasn't around. She would take hold of his arm, get up to hug him, and even pose odd questions to him, such as, "Don't you think Betty is a little immature?" She once fell in a way that revealed her pants, and she even requested for his phone number. Fortunately for Adam, her actions were more amusing than beautiful. It would have been a serious issue if he had been the kind of man to support this. However, because she was my sister, she appeared to think she still had a shot with him. Adam couldn't simply turn her away without causing awkwardness in the family. She tried to win him over by calling out to him pleasantly each time they met. It was more than simply her first attraction to him. She also believed he was the ideal catch for a secure future because she knew he worked for a reputable corporation. He's dependable, attractive, and a wonderful man. She would remark that she was totally enamored with him. My parents never mentioned her improper behavior in spite of everything. I was not surprised by their quiet. My sister's behavior has always been met with their passivity. She was never a responsible person. She might unintentionally use a plastic container that would melt in the microwave. For instance, if she was requested to reheat side dishes. She also struggled academically and athletically. She frequently missed swimming classes, citing skin issues, foot pain, or illness as reasons. The same was true with housework. She was never really good at them. Even though she wasn't very attractive, she always found a way to draw attention and cause drama. The same thing she was doing now that Adam was the oldest daughter. Our parents had always treated my sister differently. They never reprimanded her or fixed her errors. Rather, they subtly anticipated that I would assist her in the background. It was unfair to me that I was always advised to stay in the background and let my sister shine. My parents seemed to feel sorry for her because they believed she was less capable than I was. They continued to indulge her. In contrast, I was always accountable and fast to take care of problems on my own. Perhaps it wasn't as exciting for them to assist someone who had already achieved success. Thus, they gave my sister's needs greater attention. I eventually grew accustomed to this treatment, even when they minimized my skills in public. However, as I got older, I began to see the importance of my efforts, particularly in the classroom. This familial pattern was something I no longer wanted to tolerate. If I had persisted in living up to their standards, when I began to defend my accomplishments, I could have ended up doubting myself. My sister thought I had stopped being there for her, This led to a little disagreement, but not a serious altercation. We were still able to communicate regularly, and I frequently offered her advice on various topics. Our family operated in a unique manner. My sister occasionally felt envious of me since my parents were so protective of her. I still considered us to be a typical family, though, in spite of everything. But when Adam didn't feel the same way about my sister, that equilibrium was upset. The night before my wedding was the height of her annoyance. "I can't believe my younger sister is getting married before me," she informed our dad. My parents attempted to reassure her, telling her that she would find a decent spouse as well, Linda. She remained steadfast in her belief that the older sister ought to get married first, despite their assurances. Additionally, I was marrying too soon. However, tomorrow is the wedding. "Mom, what are you saying? Do you not give a damn about me? I will resemble the dejected elder sister who was abandoned," she sobbed. I heard her and my parents having a furious argument in the hallway that evening. Did she really need to be married before me? I would have lost valuable years of my life if I had waited for her. I thought her response was overly theatrical. After venting her fury, I assumed she would settle down, but instead she made an unexpected demand. "Tomorrow's wedding will not be attended by Mom and Dad, so just accept that, please." "Betty." I was surprised. To appease my sister, my parents had genuinely decided not to attend my wedding. They seemed to be operating under an odd regulation in which my sister held absolute authority. It was more than just pampering her. It was something far more serious. "Okay, I'll take it. Permit her to get married without anyone in her family knowing about it." When my sister did say it, it was obvious that she didn't want me to wed Adam. She most likely harbored romantic sentiments for him. I was struck with reality. I was getting married without my parents present, all due to the envy of my sister. I didn't get much sleep the previous night, not because I was thrilled, but rather because I was anxious. I couldn't stop thinking about the terrible talk I had with my parents and sister. When she learned they wouldn't be attending on the wedding day, I couldn't help but notice the contented expression on her face. I had to endure the agonizing process of telling Adam and his parents everything. "I apologize, but my family will not be attending since my sister opposes this marriage," I told them, and it was heartbreaking to speak those things. Adam's parents couldn't believe it. They were shocked to learn that some parents had not attended the wedding of their own daughter. They remained quiet for a while, allowing the gravity of the situation to set in. My father-in-law put his hand on top of ours, and my mother-in-law held my hand, seeing how hard this was for me. "Keep in mind that your family is present. Don't let it be a depressing day. Come on, grin at us." With warmth, my mother-in-law said. Her remarks were full of love and support, the type one should have had from my own parents at that time. Wearing my wedding gown, I stood there. Adam swiftly hurried to my side and stroked my hair as I started crying. "I'm here as your husband, Jessica. Don't worry about who isn't present, please." Seeing that I was going to weep, he remarked quietly. Adam and my in-laws made an effort to lift my spirits. "Don't weep. The bride is you. Makeup will run on you." They tried to lighten the situation by making jokes. Then, after giving me a serious look, my mother-in-law replied, "Jessica, I know this is difficult. However, you are beginning a new life today. Now concentrate on starting your own family." They embraced me tightly, and even though I felt abandoned, I felt their warmth. Adam came after my mother-in-law. Next up is my father-in-law. As my mother-in-law had stated, I made a pledge to myself at that very moment. This was a fresh beginning for me. Adam and I began our life together on that day when we were married. It's been 14 years since then. Adam and I are fortunate to have 3 kids, 3 energetic lads who never stop getting into trouble around the home, and a bright girl who can handle everything. I sometimes remember that challenging period. However, I've never felt bad about picking Adam and the lovely family we created. I can hear myself yelling, "Stop now." I'm also shocked at how much I sound like a stern mother. Adam and I have had a fantastic life. We've purchased a home, his profession has expanded, and we've been leading a secure and contented life. Then, one day, an entirely unexpected event occurred. Following the ceremony, my mother, father, and sister unexpectedly showed up at our door. I never told my family my new address since I had distanced myself from them. However, they managed to locate us and unexpectedly arrived. Naturally, I didn't meet them warmly the first time. Unlike after all this time, I called instead. "What do you want?" they questioned. It was my sister who spoke first. She said, "I need a favor from you." My folks jumped in right away. "You are the only one who can do it for us," they continued, giving me a serious look, and I couldn't understand. What could they possibly want from me now that we haven't spoken for 14 years? I said nothing, fascinated and uncomfortable at the same time. Finally, my mother said the startling words, "Give Adam to your sister, please." Adam and I gaped at them in utter shock. "Hold on, what? What are you saying? Do I have to give Adam up?" With my heart pounding, I inquired. My sister stood there with a smug expression on her face, while my parents looked away from me, seeming guilty. She appeared utterly unaffected by her circumstances, even though she was 40 years old, still unmarried, and now jobless due to her company's closure. "It's difficult." My dad let out a sigh. "The future of your sister worries us. She is unmarried and unemployed. You sisters ought to sympathize with her and support her." Within, I was yelling, "No." I wanted to hear what else they had to say, so I kept silent. My anger increased with each word my father spoke. "She's still by herself since she's always liked Adam. Have you not had her time with him? You can't give him to your sister for the rest of her life. Even so, what are you saying?" I was so astonished that I snapped. Adam was also astounded, unable to come up with words. My sister stood there with confidence, as though she really thought she would get what she wanted, while my parents continued to beg. Considering that she had always been spoiled by my parents, her belief that this absurd demand would succeed was not unexpected. Adam took me aside as I stood there, too startled to talk, and said in a whisper, "This might be our chance to put an end to all of this. Do you recall that drunken joke you told? It seems as though it is actually happening." I had a weird feeling of bravery. We went back to my folks. "Is Adam truly the object of your love?" I looked straight at my sister as I asked, "Do you truly love Adam that much?" I questioned my sister bluntly. My question took her by surprise. She answered after stuttering, obviously astonished. "Indeed, all this time I have adored him." "If you love someone who is married to someone else, that's a long time," I said, keeping a tight eye on her. She gave an emotional response. "Seeing the three of you together has been really unpleasant. I should have been the one." Adam and I found it difficult to maintain our composure. She spoke passionately, as though she had persuaded herself that she and Adam were destined to be. I chose to comply. "If you truly adore him, I'll move aside." Dramatically, I said. Everyone let out a gasp. In particular, my parents. "Really? But you also adore Adam, don't you?" My mother looked at me incredulously and inquired swiftly. "No," I said nonchalantly. Adam realized, "Actually, to tell you the truth," he said, "Linda has always piqued my interest." My sister's expression brightened with anticipation. "Really? I knew it," she said, ecstatic beyond comprehension. It was a weird scene. Adam and I looked at each other. I'm having a hard time not laughing at how absurd everything is. In actuality, we were contentedly together. However, there were occasions when going along with the foolishness was the greatest way to expose it. Adam's eyes sparkled playfully as I gave him a hug. His voice trembled with repressed laughter as he replied, "I've been waiting for this moment." He feigned tears beside me, but his trembling shoulders betrayed it. I moved closer and said, "Let's just complete this small gesture. We'll be with each other forever." In the meantime, my sister began speaking to Adam, as though they had known one another for years. It seemed as though she had spent the previous 14 years living a love tale with him in her imagination. "I'm so happy, Linda," remarked Adam with a smile. "Please continue to support me." "Yes, of course," she said happily. Adam then revealed the shocking information. I will thus be leaving my position. My sister's enthusiasm was quickly dashed. She was so shocked that her face became pale. "What? Linda, I want to spend my entire life with you. Thus, I'm leaving my position. I refuse to leave the house anymore. I'll be with you wherever you go, even to the toilet. I'll watch you clean the house," he remarked with a smile. My sister's grin became cold. Our parents appeared uneasy. However, neither do I have a job. "That's the issue," she stumbled. "What's wrong? Money is not a concern while we are together." Adam continued the joke by saying, "Love is enough." My sister's anxiety increased. However, you have to pay for things like insurance these days. The past is no longer the case. Love is not enough to sustain you. Seizing the opportunity, I said, I'll be taking a good share of the money and property if we do end up divorcing Adam. Therefore, you had better be prepared to pay. I said, Don't worry. Your parents and sister will take care of the payments, Adam said with a giggle. My parents paled when they heard this. They exchanged glances, obviously shocked. It's difficult to say, Linda, but this is incorrect. Taking your sister's spouse is not an option. At last, my dad said something. That's right, Linda. It simply isn't how things operate, my mom also said. However, where had their self-assurance disappeared to? They were requesting that I turn over my spouse only a short while ago. It was as though they had just realized how ridiculous this was. What are you discussing? You said you would give me Adam, Linda objected. My father responded softly. That was before. I'd rather not hear it. My mom lost her temper. Linda looked to her for comfort, frustrated. However, our mother chose to ignore her rather than offer consolation. Abruptly, Linda lost her composure. Does nobody stand by me? She grabbed our mother's hair and yelled. In the midst of all the uproar, my father hurried in to attempt to calm things down. Adam casually moved forward to capture everyone's interest. He responded plainly, You're not my type, Linda. Sister, I respect you as Jessica, but that's all. You always give me that look, and I don't want to interact with you too much. I'm genuinely uneasy about it. His remarks were a slap in the face. My parents were stunned, and my sister froze. But what about what you stated before, Adam? With a quivering voice, Linda inquired. Don't be so casual with someone else's husband, please, I interrupted. There was never any doubt that he would fall in love with you. It ought to have ended there. However, I blocked my sister's way when I saw her approach Adam slowly and with a pale face. We are a family. Together we are content. I spoke aggressively. Her expression contorted in rage as she came to a halt and faced me. You deceived me, she yelled. I let out a sigh. How could someone who hasn't spoken to you in 14 years be in love with you, Linda? That's unrealistic, isn't it? Tears filled her eyes as her cheeks flushed. You were a terrific catch, but I didn't hold back. Perhaps, but nobody wants to date a jobless person. I can't even take care of myself, and they rely on their parents. Your mother has always gone above and beyond for you. That isn't appealing. Behind me. Adam chuckled quietly when he realized how absurd the scenario was. Linda sobbed out when she realized the reality. My parents, who had lavished her with attention throughout her childhood, attempted to console her, but they appeared confused, as though they were just now realizing the reality. Linda, I won't give you Adam. Give it up. I spoke aggressively. The way a youngster screams when they don't receive what they want made her sobs louder. I went on. Learn from this, and never again try to get involved in our life. You shouldn't count on us to assist you with any future issues. I felt free for the first time in my life. I shut the front door carefully. When my kids inquired about what had transpired, I said softly with a smile, It appears like a ghost arrived early because it's Halloween season. Should we get rid of the ghost? My oldest child said, laughing. I dismissed the notion, but to be honest, it seemed oddly genuine. My sister had sounded like a restless ghost as she wailed loudly outside. My sister was still unmarried after another 5 years. Although she was able to secure employment, her improper actions ultimately led to her termination. She hurried into marriage preparations, but her behavior generated so many issues that she was even prohibited from attending matchmaking functions. She could remain unmarried forever if things continue this way. In the meantime, my parents continue to work part-time jobs and diligently save money for her. I believe they finally come to the realization that they won't be able to rely on her to look for them as they become older. I hope they now realize the repercussions of indulging her for so long. In my case, I've been fortunate because of my husband's steady work and my kids' academic achievement. School expenses are not a concern for me. I do occasionally ponder whether working outside the home might enable me to shed the excess weight. I usually make more money around the holidays. My normally slender daughter, who is currently experiencing a growth spurt, has begun to discuss diets. However, I always advise her to wait till she is older, just like me. There's no hurry. Dancing is a passion of all 3 of my sons. They just received many accolades for their performance at a local festival. Now that they are more self-assured, they hope to eventually join Beats. In my heart, I'm hoping the band sticks together long enough to have a genuine chance at realizing that ambition. My in-laws, who I consider to be like genuine parents, frequently visit us. Love and laughter abound throughout our time together, especially while we are eating delectable meals. We're organizing a family spa vacation for the next spring break. All of us are excited to spend time with one another. Despite the difficulties in the past, I am happy with my life right now. I have a devoted husband, amazing kids, and close family ties. I treasure every second and want to be healthy, happy, and with my loved ones for many more years to come. Story 3. I had no idea that a single phone call might alter my whole life. It was a typical Thursday morning, and I was in my 20th floor office, reviewing the daily reports. My phone suddenly sprang to life. My mother was phoning. My coffee mug nearly fell. It had been years since she had phoned me. "Is that you, Kelly?" She spoke in a different tone, unsteady and exhausted. "Yes, Mother." "What's the matter?" I made an effort to sound serious and composed. Being a department head at work at the age of 30 meant that I had to maintain my professionalism at all costs. "Your dad. He died yesterday. 4 days remain till the funeral." Her remarks were like a kick to the gut. They were only now telling me that Dad was gone. I clung to my desk's edge. I felt grateful that I had rented this lovely flat with a separate workspace. "What took place?" I pushed the words out as I asked. "Heart attack." Of course, he was at work. I could hear my sister Lauren sobbing in the background as her voice trailed off. He was at work, of course. In an effort to care for them both, he was always working. Lauren, my sister, 24, who never worked a day in her life, and my mother, who was unemployed. I suppressed the wrath that was rising within of me. What occurred, and why didn't you tell me? "Kelly, we were in shock. It all occurred so quickly." She hesitated. "The funeral. At 3 p.m. on Sunday, that is. Are you coming?" Would I attend? Naturally. He was my father. When I went out on my own, they were the only people who supported me. The only person that encouraged me after I graduated from college. Mom and Lauren were too preoccupied in finding Lauren's prom outfit. Even if it meant sneaking away during his lunch break, he was the only one who found time to phone me. "I will be there, of course." I spoke aggressively. I then hung up the phone. I sat calmly and gazed at the metropolitan skyline outside the window. A flood of memories rushed back. Recollections of how my mother consistently picked Lauren above me, like when I was a member of the high school debate team. However, Mom brought Lauren to her dancing recital, so she missed my first competition. Or when I was 17 and obtained my first job. Mom was upset that I would no longer be around to assist Lauren with her homework. Rather than expressing her happiness for me, I departed as soon as I could because of this. I worked part-time jobs and used scholarships to pay for education. I worked hard to advance in my career and obtained a tiny flat in the city. Dad recognized me. He came as often as he could, delivering a proud smile and a small gift every time. And he was gone now. People the first didn't know, including parents, co-workers, old acquaintances, and distant family, were gathered at the funeral home to bid farewell to the guy who had worked himself to death. I was just 55. As everyone made their way to Mom and Lauren, I remained close to the back and silently observed. They were in the open, blotting away their tears and taking hugs and encouraging remarks. "Oh," Joyce and Hannah responded, firmly grasping Mom's hand. "Simply let them know if you need anything." Mom used a tissue to dab at her eyes. "Without Austin, things will be extremely difficult. The only one making money was him. I'm not sure how we'll handle this at this point." I tightened my jaw. When Lauren began sobbing loudly once more, 4 more individuals hurried to her aid. I couldn't help but note how well groomed her hair and freshly painted nails looked. I suppose she had a lot of free time because she didn't have a job. He put forth a lot of effort for us. Mom went on loudly. "Lauren and I are now the only ones without a job. I had to go outside. I felt more at ease because of the chilly air. 3 weeks ago, my dad called. I recall. He had sounded particularly worn out. He said, 'I just finished my second shift. The females must be kept comfortable.' You are aware. Slow down, I should have told him. I should have returned inside and said anything. I was forced to listen to my mother's dramatic tales about financial difficulties for an additional 3 hours. Lauren looked lost and forlorn, and she acted well. Neither of them ever brought up the fact that they had been looking for work for years without ever trying. At last, People began to go. Mom yelled out just as I was reaching for my coat. "Hold on, Kelly. We must speak." Lauren and I went into the kitchen after her. Mom abruptly turned to face me, her eyes welling with tears. "I understand that things haven't been going well between us," she stated to Kelly. "I am aware that I disregarded you. I'm aware that I always focused more on Lauren." Behind her, Lauren made a face and rolled her eyes. "However, your father's passing opened my eyes to the fleeting nature of life." Mom went on. "We must move on from the past and reunite as a family." I felt like screaming at her. I wanted to say that if Dad hadn't put in so much overtime to support their slack lifestyle while I was working hard to establish a career, perhaps he would still be here today. His sacrifice and hard work were providing for them. I didn't say the words, even though they were burning in my throat. Neither the time nor the location was appropriate. Rather, I said bluntly, "Why now, Mom? Is money at stake here?" Her expression abruptly changed as if I had offended her. "How are you able to say that? The house and some savings were left to us by your father. For now, we'll be all right." I simply, "All I want is the return of my daughter. I'm not opposed to making things better." "Slow," I said, "but perhaps we ought to go more slowly. We must reestablish trust." "Of course, my love. Whatever you think is best," Mom said. It was a quick drive back to my flat. Later, while gazing at the city lights from my living room, I began to ponder. Mom might have been right. Perhaps Dad's passing was a true wake-up call. Maybe we could fix our relationship. After all, she did admit she had made mistakes, right? A week after the funeral, Mom called and invited me to dinner. "I'm making your favorite lasagna," she said, her voice sounding cheerful, but I could tell it was forced. I almost laughed. In the past, she only made lasagna when Lauren asked for it. Still, I agreed to go, reminding myself that I had promised to give them a chance. The house looked the same as it did during the funeral, except now Dad's shoes were missing from their spot by the door. Lauren was lying on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up when I walked in. "Everything is so expensive these days," Mom said as she pulled the lasagna out of the oven. I nearly fainted when I saw the grocery bill. And don't even get me started on the utility bills. The electric company must think we're rich. I noticed she was serving dinner on brand new plates. "Have you started looking for a job yet?" I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. "Oh, sweetie," she said, not looking at me. "The job market is awful right now. Did you know cheese prices went up 40%? And the internet bill. It's like daylight robbery at the dinner table." Lauren finally put down her phone long enough to join in. "My friends say everything costs twice as much now," she said. "How is anyone supposed to live?" I took a sip of water and chose my words carefully. You know, when you have a job and a regular paycheck, those price increases don't feel so bad. The meaning of my words hung in the air like smoke. But Mom and Lauren acted like they didn't hear me. "We'll find something eventually," Mom said, pouring herself another glass of wine. "But for now, we just have to tighten our belts a little." "That sounds like a great idea," I replied. I spoke, unable to hide the sharp tone in my voice. "Tightening your belt really builds character." The mood in the room changed instantly. It felt like the temperature dropped. Lauren's face turned into a scowl and Mom's smile looked fake and stiff for the rest of the evening. They hardly talked when I tried to start a conversation. They answered with short, cold replies. This became the new normal over the next few weeks. I would come over for dinner. Mom would complain about how everything costs too much, and I would make small comments about them finding jobs. They acted like they didn't understand what I meant. It felt like we were all following the same weird routine, but no one wanted to admit what was really going on. Then one Friday, everything changed. I had just finished helping Mom clean up after dinner when she cleared her throat and looked nervous. "Kelly, honey, we need to talk about something," she said. "The washing machine broke yesterday. Water went everywhere and, you know, how expensive repairs are these days. Here it comes," I thought. "We really need a new one," she added. Lauren, sitting next to her, nodded quickly. I was wondering, could you maybe help us pay for it? I looked at both of them, Mom with her begging eyes, and Lauren with that hopeful look on her face. Part of me felt bad. This house was full of memories of Dad, and now they were trying to get by without him. But another part of me remembered how often they had taken advantage of him. I had to be careful. "I'm not giving you money." I spoke aggressively. I watched their faces fall. but I will buy the washing machine myself." Mom's mouth tightened. She clearly wasn't happy. "Fine," she said, her voice full of disappointment. "If that's how you want to do it." I knew this wasn't the answer they were hoping for, but I wasn't going to hand over money that might never be used for what they said it was for. I picked up a good Whirlpool washing machine. It wasn't fancy, but it worked well and saved energy. I arranged for it to be delivered and installed on a Thursday morning, even taking a half day off work to be there when it was all set up. Mom walked around the machine like a real estate agent, checking out a house she didn't like. "It's nice," she remarked, but her tone made it sound like she didn't think so at all. "I did saw this stunning Samsung one at the appliance store. It has all these wonderful features." I picked up my purse and responded, "Well, when you're ready to buy your own washing machine, you can get the fanciest one they manufacture." Mom instantly laughed. "Oh, I'm only teasing, honey. This one's perfect." "Really?" I nodded, but I didn't believe her for a second. Over the following 2 months, it felt like everything in the house started coming apart. First, the refrigerator broke. The repairman came, took one look at it, and declared it couldn't be mended. I spent a Sunday day shopping for appliances with Mom. Surprisingly, she didn't grumble about the costs this time. Then, the dishwasher broke and drenched the kitchen floor. Lauren contacted me, sounding terrified, like she had no clue people could wash dishes by hand. "We can't live like this," she screamed over the phone. I thus expanded the list of items I had already purchased for them to include a dishwasher. The coffee machine then broke down. "Every home requires decent coffee, according to your father." "Mom," she began in a somewhat tremulous voice. I was unable to dispute that. I thus got them a good, dependable coffee machine. Every time an item breaks, I made the purchase myself or paid for it personally. Mom said that it would be simpler if I simply handed her the cash. However, I refused to back down. I can still clearly recall how, in the past, Lauren's shopping expenses were frequently covered by Dad's repair money. The furnishings for the living room was the most costly thing. Mom said one evening that the old sofa made her think too much of her father, who would use it to fall asleep after a hard day at work. The fact that the cupboard still contained his books and periodicals made them difficult to look at, she added. So I changed everything. New memories, new cabinets, and a new sofa. At least I knew where every dollar was going with every purchase I made, even though my credit card suffered a significant setback. I convinced myself that I was assisting them in acclimating to life without their father. I believed I was adding coziness to the house. On some evenings, though, I questioned whether I was only assisting them in remaining reliant, as my father had done for many years. Then one evening during supper, Lauren made a startling statement. She practically bounced in her chair as she remarked, "I got an interview. The position is administrative at Raymond and Brandon." After months of her claiming to be looking for a job, I almost choked on my meatloaf. The first actual news was this. Mom grinned with pride, as if Lauren had already been promoted to manager. "That's fantastic." Trying to remain composed, I said, "What time is it?" "Next week." As she pushed peas about her plate, Lauren responded, "However, there is a slight issue. It's coming." I need something nice to wear, I thought. Initial impressions count. People make snap judgments about you based on your attire. HR. I suggested that we go shopping together. I am aware of few excellent stores for business attire. As if I had asked her to put on something from the garbage, Lauren pulled a face. "I'm 24, Kelly. I believe I am able to shop for myself. I've already located the ideal suit. All I need is the cash to purchase it. It will cost about $1,000. They collaborated to work on me for the next hour. Lauren continued talking about how her life may be changed by this employment. I hardly recalled it, but Mom told me about the day she helped me buy my first interview attire. I finally gave in. I wanted to encourage Lauren's effort, if it was genuine, but I was exhausted. "All right, breaking my own rule," I said. "I'm sending you the $1,000, but once you buy the suit, I want to see it," I added. Taking out my phone, Lauren grinned broadly and gave me a hug. "There is no better big sister than you." I came into it a week later while perusing Instagram. Lauren, posing in what appeared to be a club, he was most definitely not wearing a work suit. She was dressed in a gleaming crimson gown that appeared to have cost precisely $1. Oh, I could feel my temper building. I looked at additional pictures of Lauren dancing, snapping pictures, and having a good time while wearing what was meant to be her interview attire. I drove directly to my mother's place the following morning. At midday, Lauren was still in her pajamas, obviously suffering from a hangover. "How was the interview then?" I asked in a kind way. "Good, huh?" Without glancing at me, she muttered. "Excellent. That's fantastic," I said. "Could you show me your suit? The one you purchased using my funds?" Lauren's expression became white. "At the dry cleaners, that is. That's odd." Taking out my phone, I said, "Because you seem like you bought a whole new clothing with my $1,000 based on your Instagram." Tears sprang to Lauren's eyes. "Are you watching me?" I answered. "Posting it for everyone to see isn't spying." "Lauren, you lied to me. Did there not happen to be an interview?" "You're so cruel," she sobbed. "That clothing was necessary. That celebration will be attended by all of my pals. For a job interview, I paid you that sum of money." With a stern voice, I said. Mom then intervened. "Don't be too harsh on her, Kelly. She is young. She must also enjoy herself." That was it. The last straw. "I'm finished." My voice trembled as I spoke. "I've finished repairing your house, purchasing your appliances, and providing funds for fictitious job interviews. Both of you are now alone." They yelled behind me as I drove away, and I slammed the door behind me. I began to feel all the anger I had suppressed for years. There would never be any change. They would constantly search for someone to look after their needs. Another lie, always another excuse. I ignored all of Mom's and Lauren's calls, texts, and voicemails for 4 weeks. Every time their names appeared on my phone, I experienced a mixture of emotions, including relief that I was no longer responsible for their troubles and rage at what they had done. Then February arrived with the first snowfall and recollections of past family Christmases. The doorbell rang while I was in my flat reviewing end-of-year reports. Mom was standing there in Dad's old winter coat when I opened the door. "Kelly," she muttered. "Can we have a conversation?" I stopped. My throat tightened at the sight of that coat. Dad had worn it to all of my school functions, each parent-teacher conference. Mom was always too busy with Lauren, so he was by himself there. Mom said, "Christmas is coming." In the chilly corridor, her breath formed clouds. "Holidays are for family, according to your father." One thing she was correct about. One of Dad's favorite sayings was that Mom appeared quieter than normal as Lauren peered out from behind. Mom said in a trembling voice, "Please, only 10 minutes." Already questioning whether I was making a mistake, I moved aside to allow them entry. I went to make some tea while they sat on the couch. Dad's method of making everything right. I felt a little more at ease just by boiling water and pouring tea. Mom said, "We miss you," as I gave her a cup. "Without you here, the house feels so empty." Lauren gripped her cup tightly and nodded. "I apologize for the dress issue," she muttered. "I was wrong to lie." Observing the steam rising from it, I took a seat. The rage I had been harboring for weeks now seemed so distant. I just felt depressed and exhausted. Perhaps Dad would have preferred that we try again. Perhaps second chances were appropriate during the holidays. Mom reached for my hand and said, "I just want us to be a real family again. It would have saddened your father to see us like this." We spoke for the next hour. For the first time in years, we were actually speaking. I had never heard the stories Mom told me about Dad. I was shown photos from Lauren's purported job search. In fact, it was pleasant, typical, as if we would be able to mend our damaged connection. However, my phone rang with a message from my bank the following day when I was at work. At Nordstrom, there was a $600 fee. Before I had a chance to respond. At Saks, another message appeared with the $1,900. My hands began to shake. In the last hour, charges from pricey clothes businesses appeared one after the other when I accessed my banking app. I immediately contacted the bank. I have certain charges that I should disclose. I strongly requested that my card be blocked immediately. I continued to examine the transactions after verifying that the card had been stopped in an attempt to figure out what had happened. Then I recalled that yesterday before they left, Lauren had asked to use my loo. She must have stolen my credit card by going through my purse. I looked at the time. The time was 2:30 p.m. There were 3 hours left in the workday, but this couldn't wait. I hurried to my car after gathering my belongings and informing my assistant that I had a family emergency. Not knocking, I entered Mom's house. My hands are trembling with anger. Surrounded by shopping bags from high-end boutiques, Lauren lay on the new sofa I had purchased. Her eyes seldom left her phone. "Return my credit card to me." My voice trembled as I spoke. Mom hurried in from the kitchen, using a kitchen towel to wipe her hands. "Why Why are you creating such a fuss, Kelly, honey? Mom, she took from me. Yesterday, she grabbed my card out of my handbag. Lauren dug into her expensive purse and rolled her eyes. Most likely purchased with my pilfered funds. She took my credit card out. All right, she said. This is the return of your valuable card. All I needed was a few items for the Christmas gathering, Lauren stated. You've also been quite frugal recently. I pulled the card from her grasp. Stingy. I got you a whole house, complete with furnishings and appliances, and you're thanking me like this? By taking something from me. Don't accuse your sister of stealing, Mom remarked, putting herself in our way. Anger was flushing her face. All she needed was an elegant Christmas outfit. She wouldn't have needed to do it herself if you weren't so self-centered with your money. I gave them a look. Standing there, pretending that Lauren's actions were quite natural, I really glanced at my mother. Lauren is posing as the victim while sitting there surrounded by shopping bags. As usual. The sofa was where they were seated. I had purchased a TV subscription. I had purchased, most likely with the intention of utilizing the machine to brew coffee later. Suddenly, a thought occurred to me. A strategy began to take shape. I inhaled deeply and tried to smile. Mom, you know what? You could be correct. I may have been a bit too severe when it comes to money. I mean, it's Christmas. Her expression brightened. That would be amazing, honey. Actually, I went on. This year, why don't we spend Christmas here with all the family? Yes, Mom answered with joy. Like you did when you were younger, we can do it on Christmas Eve. Over the following 3 days, I'll give everyone a call. Every time my mother phoned to make plans, I did my part flawlessly. I gladly accepted all of it. In my finest holiday attire, I even arrived early on Christmas Eve. We have some last-minute party supplies to pick up. Would you mind? Mom said. Obviously not, I responded, giving them several $100 after taking out my wallet. Obtain what you require. They nearly bolted from the door, most likely worried that I would alter my mind. As soon as their vehicle rounded a bend, I took my phone out. It's Kelly Wilson indeed. The movers may come now, I replied. I had made all the arrangements in advance, and movers were willing to work on Christmas Eve in exchange for additional compensation. A leased storage locker on the other side of town. A little moving truck even. In a matter of minutes, they were there, ready to start earning their Christmas bonuses. I took everything I had purchased in the previous several months out of the house. The coffee maker, dishwasher, refrigerator, and washing machine. Lauren's stolen shopping bags and the sofa she had been lounging on. Even the cabinets. Everything. Then all was gone. I put a modest present beneath their Christmas tree, wrapped carefully. I looked around the almost empty house one final time. I was reminded of the private conversations my father and I used to have in that very room, while Mom and Lauren were out shopping. My phone began to ring at about 3 p.m. My phone rang when I was enjoying a glass of wine, and the snow falling outside my window at my flat. Mom's frantic voice exploded across the speaker. Someone has robbed us. Everything was taken by someone who broke in. The refrigerator, the washing machine, and every piece of furniture. Everything is gone, if you hadn't departed. No one robbed you, Mom, I answered calmly as I took another sip of wine. I took everything. Everything I have purchased in the last couple months. Now it's in storage. This is not possible. She let out a scream. I'm going to call the cops. In fact, I laughed. Proceed. Additionally, there is a small gift for you under the tree. You ought to open it. She stomped across the room, and I could hear it. Then there was the sound of wrapping paper being torn. It is only a collection of receipts. What sort of foolish present is this? I responded. Those aren't just any receipts. They serve as evidence that I purchased everything I took today. I paid for every item and piece of furniture. They will be of great assistance to the cops, I'm sure. You could also want to mention how Lauren used my credit card that was stolen to go shopping. Anger trembled in your cruel little man's voice. On Christmas Eve, how could you have done this to us? What should we say to everyone? I'm not sure, I answered. Perhaps the fact that you and Lauren have been surviving off of my assistance and Dad's money, while you have refused to accept jobs that Lauren stole from me and that you stood up for her. After that, I blocked her number and hung up. On Christmas Day the next morning, my phone rang once again. It was my cousin Madison this time. She could hardly speak because she was laughing so much. Kelly, my goodness. What occurred last night will astound you. Tell me what I said. Madison started, and Joy proceeded to tell everyone this dramatic tale about how you took all of their stuff on Christmas Eve and how ungrateful you were. Uncle Walter then questioned why. Given that they hadn't had a job for years, they hadn't merely bought their own furnishings. Your dad once told me he was working double shifts just to support them, Hannah added. I smiled because I could picture the entire situation in my mind. The texts continued to arrive over the following few weeks. They were first upset. After then, they became apologies. Then they were desperate. They couldn't afford groceries, according to Mom. Lauren claimed to have realized her mistake. They pleaded to speak, claimed to have missed me, claimed to love me, that they were different. Every time they attempted to use a new number, I blocked it. I updated my email. I delete them from every social media platform I use. I wonder how they're doing sometimes. If they ever found employment, if the house was sold, whether the incident taught them anything. However, such ideas no longer keep me up at night.